going to run through a presentation, run through some quick slides to give you an overview of who we are, what we do, and how we work. And then I'll jump out of the presentation and jump into NetSuite and kind of show you how it works within the application, and then we can kind of take it from there. Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. So first off, we're going to talk about, well, maybe. So 3 products that we're going to talk about, and Avalara handles everything. It's an end-to-end solution. So we handle everything from the calculation for the invoices, sales quotes, sales proposals, and the 2 things that we're going to look at to handle the tax rate calculations are going to be the location where the product's being installed, which we don't have to have an address. I mean, as long as we have, wherever you're shipping it to, we'll be able to determine what the tax rate jurisdiction is based on that shipping address. And then secondly will be the product. You may have varying taxability based on the product that you're installing, the installation services. All of that's going to have varying taxability, and we'll handle all of that. The second piece we'll talk about is certificate management. Avalara can handle all of your resale certificates in a digital format and maintain those electronically, all through your NetSuite ERP system. And then the end game is obviously the filing and the returns process. So since we have all of your transactions housed in our platform, with the click of a button, we can file and remit all of those payments for you at one time. So you mentioned before that in the AX product you use the native functionality. You have the same native tax quote-unquote functionality within the NetSuite ERP system. It's called the Advanced Tax Module, and Avalara is going to override that tax module. So when Avalara is installed within the ERP, it shows up in the toolbar. It's written within Suite scripts, if that means anything to anyone. That's actually the native language of NetSuite. So it is a clean connector, and there's no disruption to the end user. It's all going to happen right there in real time. Some key differences between what the Avalara module offers over what's native functionality within NetSuite. The native functionality is going to use zip codes versus rooftop location. I use the word rooftop loosely because I know you guys aren't installing in homes. Rooftop's actually going to mean a pinpoint on a map. I know that that's something that you're looking for, and I'll show you that. Secondly is product taxability. The ATM, or the Advanced Tax Module, is only going to deem a product taxable or not taxable. It's not going to have the granularity or the different metrics or matrices that you need for installation services, warranty services, shipping. Is this particular product that you're installing taxed differently in Texas than New Jersey? Avalara is going to be able to handle the different product taxability that you guys look for. The native functionality in NetSuite requires a lot of intervention on your end. And I think, Alex, you mentioned it before that you guys are having to decide a particular tax table and use drop-downs to make decisions that are wrong. With Avalara, you don't have to make any of those decisions. We make the decisions for you. And lastly, from a reporting standpoint, we have ample reporting and an audit trail that's really easy to maintain, and I can show you guys all of that here in just a few minutes. So conceptually, we use cloud-based technology just like NetSuite does, obviously. So we install what's called a connector, and the connector is just a piece of software that makes the 2 solutions talk to each other. So when you're inputting a sales order, a sales proposal, or committing an invoice in NetSuite, the NetSuite ERP system is going to make an outbound web call to our engine. We're going to send the information in that invoice through a series of questions and matrix, and we're going to send back a correct sales tax calculation right within the invoice. The information that's held within the cloud is managed by our content team. We've got a group of around 100 people that maintain content. What that means is that they're constantly looking at different sales tax changes that could happen. If a state decides to change a boundary from a tax rate jurisdiction, we make that change in real time. If they decide to make a change from a product standpoint, we also make that change in real time. So there's no need for you folks internally to look up a sales tax rate or look up any type of sales tax changes. We can handle everything for you from the content. That information comes from a mixture of directly from the states and then from just trying to find it. Since we house everything in the cloud, we do a return to remittance piece back down to the state. That's a one-time thing that I'll show you in the demo as well. So let's first talk about AvaTax. So Avalara AvaTax is the product that we use to automatically assign hundreds of thousands of taxability rules in the latest jurisdictional boundaries. So this is the product that's going to give you the calculation piece. So let's talk real quick about zip codes and sales tax jurisdictions. So this is a map of the United States, and this is a map of all of the sales tax jurisdictions, not zip codes. So you've got 43,000 zip codes, and you've got 11,000 sales tax jurisdictions. Bob, to go back to what you mentioned, one of your biggest challenges is you guys are installing product in somewhere that does not have an address. It's not a physical home address. And Avalara can handle that. I particularly have a client that installs cell phone towers in the middle of fields. They have no addresses. They are literally uploading geo longitude, latitude points into our engine, and we're calculating sales tax on the installation of that cell phone tower right there in the middle of a field. So we can handle the taxability and make sure that we're mapping the correct sales tax jurisdiction for you folks without an address. You're going to have a location to where you're shipping it to, and that's assuming where it's going to be installed. So cross streets, longitude, latitude points, whatever, you can feed all of that information into NetSuite, and we can ensure that we're going to give you the correct sales tax rate based on that boundary. Fair enough?
Yeah, because at the bottom of that cell tower is a concrete box that we sold them.
Nice. I like the way it works.
Yep.
And here's just another illustration of that. So this is a suburb of Commerce City, right outside of Denver, Colorado. And what I want to illustrate is that zip codes are just going to be incorrect. So if you're going to use, and you ran into this with AX, you were using their native functionality. So this is the same exact zip code. The homes that are shaded in green, or the areas that are shaded in green, have a sales tax rate of 4.75%, but the homes that are shaded in blue, they all have a sales tax rate of 9.25%. So this is a huge delta. I mean, this is 4.5% that you're looking at from a delta standpoint, and if you were to use zip codes as your basis, then you're just going to be doing it wrong.
Out of curiosity, who the hell comes up with this kind of weird idea? I mean, if you look at it, a house in the middle of a block has one tax code and the other ones don't. I mean, who actually does that, and how do they come up with such a bizarre concept?
So I hate to use the term, but it's gerrymandering. I mean, all of this stuff is decided upon at the local. So this particular example in Commerce City is handled by the local municipalities. So the local whomever, the local government is who draws out these jurisdictions. And this is
so
literally
some bureaucrat is pissed off at his neighbor and puts him in a higher tax rack? That doesn't make sense,
It does not make any sense. It makes zero sense at all. There's no easy answer, and there's no answer to make it make sense. I mean, really, what did this person do to piss off the local municipality people? I mean, this is one house on an entire street that's paying 5.5% more, or whatever in sales tax than this person is. What did this person do right? Because this person and this person should be, I mean, they're at opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. All right.
It's a crazy example, but it just goes to illustrate that sales tax can be a lot more complicated than people assume. A lot of people that I speak to assume that zip codes are the way that sales tax gets calculated, and I think you guys know and understand that that's not correct. And this is just an obscene, this is just a crazy example of that.
Well, just to take this example a little bit more to the bizarre scenario, for example, we have product we install, in this case, pipe in the middle of a street, and it could go across multiple, it could be a mile long. It could go across multiple jurisdictions. I'm just curious how we would handle it, or does anybody really care? Technically, it could happen.
It could happen. So I'll give you another scenario that we've looked at, and I'll have to dig into more with the sales engineer to find out exactly how they handled it. So we've got a company that uses Avalara that their building runs through 2 different sales tax jurisdictions. So the receiving end, where they receive and they distribute all of their distribution out of the back end of the building, has a different sales tax jurisdiction than the people in the front end of the building that do all the admin work. They physically reconfigured their office space to make distribution go to the front of the building and the admin go to the back of the building because it benefited them from a sales tax standpoint to work out of that side of the building than the other side of the building.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, but yeah, it makes sense to me to save money, but.
Yeah, so I mean, part of what we're going to have to think about is if you're installing pipe through multiple jurisdictions, we're going to have to find a way to separate that out on the invoice to try to make that happen, because you're going to have installation services that, you're right. Let's use this example. If I'm installing a piece of pipe diagonally from here to here, I'm crossing 2 different jurisdictions multiple times.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to hope most resale, so I'm going to go back to your original premise. If they hope for resale, I don't care, but if they aren't, we're going to have this kind of challenge. But again, it's not the majority, it's just a curiosity, because again, it happens.
Yep, and it is going to happen. I mean, I don't know. So another question that we'll have to think about is if the pipe is delivered here, because you mentioned cross streets. So let's say that we deliver the pipe here, but the pipe is installed this way. Are we going to use the delivery address, or are we going to use the installation address? I'm inclined to say that we're going to use the delivery address and make that the default, because that's the only way that NetSuite's going to determine whether an installation took place.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10 we're going to be close enough, so it's not like it's a huge problem. It's just because you have weird places like this. We'll live with it. We do now.
Sure, of course, of course. All right, so let's talk about product taxability for a second. I mentioned that we can handle the varying taxability. So I'm going to use some really ridiculous examples that a lot of people don't understand. So 2 bagels. One is sliced, one is not sliced. In the state of New York, which one's taxable and which one's not?
Sliced one's taxable.
Why?
Because labor was applied to it, probably.
Exactly right. So what happens is in New York, they absolutely say that there's a service involved in slicing the bagel, therefore it's taxable. The bagel that's not sliced, there's no service involved in it at all, so it's a non-taxable item. So if someone's a bagel shop in New York, they have to have taxability. They have to have different SKU numbers for each one of these items if they're going to be compliant. A ridiculous example. Second example, in the state of Colorado, fast food cup, fast food lid and straw, which one's taxable, which one's not?
Take a stab, Alex. Oh, he went on mute.
I would say the lid and straw.
Lid and straw is what?
Lid and straw is taxable.
All right, you had a 50-50 guess and you got it right. Not many people get that 50-50 right. There's no rhyme or reason as to why. We'll go back to why in Commerce City is the one house at 4.75 and the other house is at 9.25. Who the hell knows? All I do know is in Colorado, if you go through a McDonald's drive-through, the cup without the straw on the lid is not taxable. The straw on the lid is taxable. Another crazy example of product taxability. So you guys are going to have that. I mean, I know that you have installation services, you have delivery services, and the product itself is not going to be considered tangible personal property all across the place. So we're going to be able to look at and determine what your different taxability rates look like from a product standpoint. So moving on from Avatax, let's talk about CertCapture. This is the way that we manage and handle your exemption certificates. So one is a certificate request option, to where you can send one or you can send thousands of certificate requests to all of your people within the click of a button. I don't know how you're getting new certificates today, but if you're using our platform and our software solution, you can just send out a request. They can complete what's called a collection wizard, which again, I'll show you all this in the demo. But a collection wizard is a way for your end user to go out and physically fill out their form online and click a button to where they're not having to do anything from a paper standpoint. We have mobile capabilities to where if they're on their tablet or if on their smartphone, they can complete that certificate right there in real time and upload that information directly within the NetSuite. Storage retrieval is a piece of cake as well. If you ever do get audited or ever get questioned to retrieve those certificates, you can do so with the push of a button. You can email a report to someone. You can print them in bulk. There's a number of different things that you can do from a retrieval standpoint that Avalara can handle. And then obviously we have NetSuite integration, and I'll show you this in the demonstration in just a few minutes, that with the click of a button you can manage all of your certificates right there in the NetSuite ERP system without having to jump back and forth from a lot of different systems. And then number one reason that you may fail an audit would be renewal management. There are two reasons that people fail audits. Number one is use tax. Number two is going to be renewals and invalid certificates. Some states, the certificate never expires. Some states like Florida, they expire every year. So with the Avalara system and the CertCapture product on board with NetSuite, we can alert you as to when those certificates are going to be expiring, and then you can send out that wizard that I'll show you in a few minutes to actually have them fill out a new certificate and have it uploaded for you. We'll be able to limit your exposure from a resale certificate standpoint much more efficiently than you'd be doing it today. And then the last piece of the puzzle is the returns piece. So Avalara returns with the click of a button. You're going to be able to log into our dashboard, which is essentially having all of the information pushing over from NetSuite. You're going to be able to look at all of the states and jurisdictions that you have. We're going to pull everything out of one. We're going to do one draft out of your sales tax payable account. And then Avalara is responsible for filing all of your returns directly to the taxing authorities. And then we remit payment on your behalf to those taxing authorities as well. And I'll show you all three of these products, how they work in NetSuite. So real quick, just to show you an idea of some of the customers that are currently using Avalara today, we have a number of large customers and a number of large logos. The only reason I have this slide is to show you that NetSuite Corporate uses Avalara internally to handle all of their taxing, all of their sales and use tax needs. We do all of their calculations, we handle all of their exemption certificates, and we also file all of their NetSuite returns from a corporate standpoint. So, and they pay us. We don't give it to them for free. Any questions so far?
I'm good.
Hey, Chris.
Yes, sir.
This is Eric.
Here.
Unfortunately, I got to get off and get on another call, but I believe you said you recorded this.
Yes, sir. I did record it. I'll send it out to Bob if that's okay, and I'll let Bob distribute to whomever. Is that okay?
That's great. You bet. I'd like to sit through the rest of this, but I've got a call I got to take.
Hey, no
I'll
problem.
catch up with you.
Yeah, sounds good, Eric. Thanks for joining the time that you did. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to run through a couple different examples and kind of show you how this thing's going to work internally. So as I mentioned, this is NetSuite. This is your typical homepage. This will look different on your side. This is just kind of customized however you want it. One thing I do want to illustrate here is, as I mentioned, when the Avalara bundle is installed, it shows up in the toolbar. So everything's going to be integrated within the ERP system, so you're not having to move back and forth from a lot of different systems, and there's going to be no disruption from an end user standpoint. The communication between Avalara and NetSuite typically takes 0.4 of a second to return information back and forth, so it's not going to slow anything down. So one of the first things I want to show you is an invoice. And keep in mind, guys, that I know that not everything's going to be an invoice. You're going to have sales orders. You're going to have sales proposals. You're going to have quotes. You're going to have a lot of different things. When it comes to sales quotes and sales proposals, a lot of companies are not trusting salespeople to put in sales tax. And I don't blame them, because I'm a sales guy, and I'm the last person you want handling sales tax. The good news with Avalara on board with NetSuite is that you can include sales tax now all across the board, because the same functionality that I'm about to show you on an invoice is going to be the exact same functionality that you would get on a sales quote, sales proposal, or sales proposal all the way through the process. So you can include an accurate quote to your folks at all times. So this is a typical invoice for NetSuite. You would select your customer from a list. I'm going to select Avalara. You would complete all of this information as you normally would, and I'm going to go down and select some items. I'm going to use software as my items. I'm going to select the item and tab over. My amount's going to be there. Here's the big change, guys. Right now, Alex, you're having to select from this tax table, right?
Yeah.
This is the one you mentioned before. What we're going to do is lock it down to where everything's AvaTax. As long as the tax code is AvaTax, I'm going to give you the rate without you having to even think about it. We're going to handle it. So I simply add this line to the invoice. I want to add another line just so I can show you some differing taxability. So we've got the maintenance. Now I'm going to add the software itself, which is software licensed electronically downloaded. Just going to tab over. I'm going to make AvaTax, and I'm going to add the line. When I save this invoice to NetSuite, and again, it's going to take me a little bit longer because I'm in a demo environment. As I mentioned, it's 0.4 of a second. So once I get this information confirmed, I now have a full breakout of what this sales tax looks like. If I click on AvaTax, I can get an idea of what we're looking at. I've got an AvaTax document number, which I click on, and here's a breakout of my transaction. So I've got a California invoice with software maintenance. In the state of California, that's taxed at 50%. So 500 is exempt, 500 is taxable, and here's a breakout of the tax rate. 6.5% to the state, 1% to Orange, 0.5% to Orange County. In California, software licensed electronically downloaded or SaaS software is not taxable at all, so it's all exempt with no tax. So on this entire invoice of $11,000, I've got $40 in tax, and here's why. So there's nothing that you guys need to do. You simply, when you're inputting the invoice, make sure that it says AvaTax here, and you're done.
Hey, Chris, what determined that was California on this invoice?
So it's all based on the address and where I'm shipping everything to. You would So this is my billing address. So when I selected the customer for Avalara, it took me to a customer card, and here's the address. So what you guys would obviously do is where it says customer ID, I don't know if you have job numbers, PO numbers, whatever you have, you're going to have a specific identification to that job. And within that job, you're going to have the shipping address to where you're going to be shipping that product to.
Okay.
Make sense?
So
and you're going to do all of that in the customer card. So when you go to input that customer, you're going to put the customer name, the address it's going to. You're going to do all of that stuff that you do now. With or without Avalara, you would take that same step. What happens with Avalara at that point is when you go select that customer in the invoice, when you go to select that customer here in the invoice, that's all going to be there. So we're going to know that we're going to ping that address to the correct sales tax jurisdiction.
Yeah, which that's just fine if if this address goes to the customer. Or if our customer's a contractor and it's going to a job site, like you said before, it's going to a job address. So back to the geo idea, if that's actually not zip code or I don't know how you define the address, but if we don't have a specific address, how does that get accommodated?
Yeah, so you don't have a specific address, so you're going to have to do what the towering engineering people are doing. We're going to have to take those cross streets and we're going to have to feed the longitude, latitude points within this customer data, which is something that we'll do here on a custom side. That's a custom application that we'll do as part of your go live. So where you're not going to feed an address, but you're actually going to feed us coordinates right here.
Okay.
We're going to find those coordinates on a map. So we're going to pinpoint a location with a map using this same type of technology and put a dot right there. And that's what we're going to use.
So the user would just do this? I mean, the dispatcher, whoever's picking this address or this location would do just that, and that's how they find it?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Well, fortunately, everybody knows how to use Google Maps now, so it shouldn't be too hard.
No, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, essentially, you're going to look on a map and you're going to put a pinpoint, and that's where it's going to be, and that's what we're going to use. The only question mark that I have is if you're installing the pipe over multiple jurisdictions. That's what I've got.
Again, I think that the worst case scenario is probably very rare, but it's just sort of an interesting conundrum. And again, back to the scenarios, it may actually not happen all that often, depending on what state there are. But it's not like everywhere has all the problems. It's just a few places have.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado's a tough state. Alabama's going to be a tough state. Arizona is typically challenging. I mean, there's going to be some that are tough, yeah. And those are the ones that are going to take us the most time to work out and to work through. And that's why it's going to be an advantage for us to be part of your go live with NetSuite, just like we did with the cell phone folks that are installing the towers. There's going to have to be some custom work to get those longitude, latitude points uploaded into there, and that's going to be on our side. It's just a template that we would fill out and upload into the system. So. I mean, your go live is going to be a little bit longer than our typical go live because you're not using shipping addresses like you would be doing in a typical e-com platform. So it will take a little bit longer. Any other questions or concerns that you can see from an invoice standpoint? I know it's not a whole lot to show, but that's kind of an advantage. There's not a whole lot to show.
Yeah, simple, straightforward. I think that's going to clean it up. Like you said, there's only one code to pick, so the odds of picking the wrong one are pretty low. Just get an address and then we're done. That's
it. That's all there is to it. I mean, there's another thing that we have to look at. I'm going to click over here to an Avatax so I can show you what that looks like. So this is an Avatax dashboard, which you have information to and you have access to as well. All of the transactions that come from NetSuite also come over here if you ever need them. So this is the invoice that we just did. If I click on this invoice, well, somebody's been messing with my. So if I click on this invoice, this is called a tax code. So one of the things that we have to do as part of the go live is, in addition to getting the address set in there or the longitude latitude points, is we have to map the items that you guys are going to be passing over, like this item, software as a service. That has to be mapped to a tax code in Avatax. So you guys have individual product numbers and product names that you're going to upload into your item master list within NetSuite. That's going to be independent to you guys. We're not going to know what your independent line or items look like. So one of the things that has to be done through GoLive is doing what's called a product mapping, which is where we take all of your items and we map them to appropriate tax codes, like SW054000. It's a cloud service. So that's how we know how that product or service is taxable. I'll go back to the bagel example. There are two different tax codes for a bagel that's sliced and a bagel that's not sliced. So part of the go-live process is mapping those products. Once we have the ability to upload the physical address where everything's being installed, and once we're able to map the products together to our tax codes, everything else takes care of itself. And I will be upfront.
Once we have thousands of SKUs, I mean, so can you do it in bulk somehow? I mean, that's a lot of stuff.
Oh, absolutely, of course. Sure.
Again,
so you're going to categorize everything.
Yeah, back to this, it kind of defined exceptions. It's not an infinite list, so it's kind of how many fall out of the whatever defined exceptions are. We don't have any sliced bagels, but I mean, to some extent, I'm sure there's quirky rules, but again, it's not everywhere and it's not infinite.
No, agreed. And 80% of your stuff is going to be classified as tangible personal property anyway. It's the other 20% that we have to categorize and dump out and map to an appropriate code. If we don't map anything, it's going to default it to tangible personal property anyway. So
worst case,
we're not going to have to go. We don't have to go by item. That would take forever. Your go live would take 2 years if we did it that way.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So again, just to go back to how easy, there's not a whole lot to show from an invoice and from a calculation standpoint, and we do that on purpose. So, I mean, this is just another way for you to see how everything works. The other point I want to make here is our sourcing rules. In a lot of states, you know, it's all based on where the destination is. It's all based on where the product's being consumed. In some states like Illinois, Texas is another state, and California is another. They could source the tax rate based on where it's coming from, not where it's going to. So Avalara is able to determine, based on that invoice that you're sending over, what type of sourcing rules we need to apply. Is it an origin-based or is it a destination-based? So if you have those quirky states, we'll be able to draw the orange box around which one that we're collecting for. So we've got that granularity as well.
Okay.
Okay. So from an AvaTax standpoint, that's really all there is to see. If there's no questions, I'll jump over and show you a couple more things. I'll jump over to the exemption certificate piece. So I'll first I'll go over here and look at my list, and I'm going to pull my my clients. This is typically where you put all of your information for an exempt status. So here's all of my customers from my customer list. I'll click on Apple Electric. I'll edit this to kind of show you what it looks like. So when I click on the address tab within NetSuite, all of these buttons become Avalara buttons. And all of these have, with the exception of this one, which I'll show you in just a second, all of these have to do with getting a valid exempt certificate on file for that customer within the NetSuite ERP. Before I show you that functionality, I want to show you an address validation tool. I don't know how often you guys are going to use this because you're not really delivering to a physical address. However, if you were to do so, you can highlight the address. You can see that it's misspelled. It's Packway instead of Parkway. I can validate the address on this particular line item, and it'll correct that address for me. Again, I don't know how often you guys are going to be using this. Probably not very often.
Actually, like I said before, we have some we're selling to distributors, and so they actually do go to physical addresses.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a mixed bag. Like Eric said, it's 25% of everything, probably.
Okay. So, I mean, and I don't know how many misshipments you guys have, but when you're entering a new address for a new distributor, it would be helpful for you to ping that address to make sure that it's correct. That way, if and when you do ship a product, you're shipping it to the right spot. So, you know, let's assume that this is your client. Apple Electric Company has said, hey, I'm exempt from this purchase. I'm going to resell the product. I don't need to be charged sales tax. It's your responsibility, obviously, as the provider to say, hey, I need a certificate on file before I can not charge you sales tax. And they say, no problem, send me the certificate and I'll sign it. So what will happen is that you'll input their information within NetSuite, and you'll click a button that says Request Exemption Certificate. when that happens, an email is going to get triggered over to your client that looks like this. It's going to come from you. It obviously is not going to come from me, and it's not going to come from Avalara. So it's going to simply say Oldcastle Precast is looking for updating its certificates. Please click the link. So your end user now will click the link and go through a wizard. Makes it pretty simple for them, hopefully. Okay, it's not good. Huh. Sorry guys, I wasn't supposed to do that. But I'll go to this address. So I can go here. Also, essentially all of this would have been carried over. Kind of ruined my mojo, but all of this would have carried over. So the contact name, all this would have carried over from NetSuite. Man, I'm sorry, guys. Man, this is ruining my game. So anyway, and I apologize. I'll show you screenshots. I don't want to go through this and bore you guys. So all of the information would carry over, and they could sign it electronically and click submit. When they click submit and process everything electronically, that certificate for that particular company now comes back into NetSuite and is a valid certificate for this particular client. So at this point, anytime you have an invoice for this particular customer, it's going to mark that transaction as an exempt transaction, because we have a valid certificate on file for them. And I'm sorry that didn't work out the way that it was supposed to work out. But
well, that's all right. It's like every live demo has a flaw in it. But the question really comes down, how do we start with all the existing ones? So I mean, do the simple way is to require everybody to create a new one, or is there a way to preload it, or how does that work? How do we get from the start point of where we are to where we need to be?
Absolutely. So this is the Cert Capture dashboard. So this is where you'll do all of that information. So you'll have access to the Cert Capture dashboard, and you'll simply go to customers, and you'll do a bulk import. So all of the customers that you have, you'll export them into a CSV format out of NetSuite, and you'll import everything into Cert Capture the same way. You'll simply click the button for bulk import. It'll take you through a wizard. You'll upload that documentation and information, and all of those customers are now going to show up here in the dashboard. We do all of that at one time. And that's all done through Go Live. We'll make sure that we have all of your stuff inputted and selected correctly up into the dashboard as we go through your Go Live process.
Okay.
So I'll show real quick what it would look like from an exposure standpoint. As I mentioned, we try to keep track of that. So a lot of the times we'll have people that create their own report, and we'll have this report sent to them every day, every week, every month, as soon as they want it done. It would be a certificate expiring soon report, and this would be all of the certificates that are going to expire within 90 days. So I'm going to run this report, and I would export this report directly. When I export the report, it's going to show up here in my downloads. To save time, I'm going to show you what that looks like, which is this Excel format. All of this information is irrelevant. The only thing I care about are my customer numbers. I'm going to copy these customer numbers. I'm going to run a search against customers, paste those customers here, and get the results. In a very quick amount of time, I'm going to pull my 11 certificates that are not valid. I'm going to use my drop-down feature to run a new campaign. And by completing this campaign, prepare exempt certificate campaign, and press the button, everybody gets an email so they can complete their certificates and send them all back to you in correct form. A lot of people automate this process. They just have it automatically set up to where it does it once or twice a week, and you never touch it. You can absolutely set that up.
So you would just get exceptions if it got down to somebody just didn't do it. So I assume you get to your point, make a minimal amount of effort.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, short of just not right. You're it. The only one that just they don't do it. And if that's the case, then charge them sales tax. The fastest way to get somebody to do a certificate is to charge them sales tax.
Yeah, I mean, it may be a variety of reasons. They quit buying from you or whatever, who knows, but that's okay.
Sure.
At least you're getting it done to some level of automation so the information doesn't become burdensome, or more importantly, you are invalid, so you end up being screwed.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this ensures that you're able to reach them and you're able to touch them, and if they come back, they're valid and they're on file within NetSuite, so you don't have to ask the question. NetSuite will automatically mark that client exempt. So the last thing to look at would be a certificate search. If an auditor rolled in, or if anybody came in and wanted to look at your certificates to make sure that they were valid, you could choose an exposure zone, which would be a state or jurisdiction. You can pull that information directly, select your exposure zone, get your search results, and these are all of my certificates that I have on file from the state of Florida. I can look at those certificates by clicking on the link, and you can see them all here. You can see that it's an expired certificate. I can go back. I can do a couple of things here. I can email this report. I can export this report as I did before. I can bulk print these certificates. There's a lot of things I can do from a search standpoint. So I can pull all of those certificates at one time. Okay? Any questions on the cert capture piece?
Not for me. Alex, you have any?
No, I don't. I mean, so basically the same process you went through with invalids works the same way sorry, I was in the conversation, but same thing works for the expired ones, right? Pretty much.
Correct.
We can do that, or we can automate it for any. I saw there's like a little check mark for 30 days, or you can set the amount of days you want to be notified or something. I thought I saw
That's right.
somewhere.
I mean,
Okay.
you can do 6 months if you want to. You can do 10 days. You can customize that to be however you want it to work for your business. You can do that however you want.
And can you automate it to automatically, instead of having to run a report or do this, can you automate it where it automatically sends an email to the customer?
Yes.
When it's going to be, you know, in the next 30 days it's going to expire, so it automatically sends that email to the customer? Okay.
Absolutely. And you can also set it up to where you send the email out in 30 days, you know, automatically. You're not alerted that the certificate is, you can set it up to where you're never alerted that the certificate is bad, or you can set it up to where 10 days before it's supposed to expire, you're alerted at that point that it's a bad certificate. Whatever you want to do. But you can automate that entire process. The steps I just showed you on running the reports and using the drop downs, you don't have to take any of those actions. You can set all of that up automatically.
Got it. Okay.
So, excuse me, this is Jeff, but so this tracks certificates for customers. Can it also track certificates for jobs?
Yes, same way, same functionality. You'll just associate it as a job instead of a client.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions?
You going to cover
Nope.
use tax at all?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to cover use tax at all?
Yeah, I can cover that right now. So I'll go back over to NetSuite because that's where all of that's handled, and I'll show you what a use tax transaction will look like. Here's my transactions. Here's my I'm going to enter a bill for my payables account. I'm going to select my vendor. I'm going to select my category. Why I'm buying safety equipment from a CPA, I don't know. I didn't set up the account. This is a $1,000 item. I'm going to save this transaction. It's going to ask me if I want to accrue use tax. It's going to ask me that there's calculated use tax of $87 on the $1,000 account. Do I want to assess use tax? I'm going to say OK. Save it. I've now got that confirmed. When I click on Avatax, what you'll see here is an impact on the GL. I've debited 87 from the miscellaneous expense account, and I've credited to the sales tax payable account. If I want to see granularity, I can do the same exact granularity over here that I showed before. I'll go back and look at transactions. Here is my Bob Ford CPA purchase invoice that I can click on, and have the same exact information that I had before. My origin, my destination, and the tax rate applicable. Again, I hate to make it sound simple, but that's as simple as it gets for use tax.
Okay, so then at the end of the month, that gets transmitted to Avatax repair return. Does it get reviewed prior
Yes.
to
Yes.
the end of the month?
Yes, it does. That's up to you. You can. So it leads me to my next point. So when it comes time to do a return, you would get out of NetSuite and you would log into your dashboard and you would click on the tax returns tab like I have here. And you would pull the information for the particular date range. I'm going to pull date range from in the past so I have data. And all of my information is here. All of my transactional information for all of my invoices are going to be located here in one place. A couple things to make note of. You're going to have different filing frequencies depending upon the state. So we're going to maintain those filing calendars for you internally. So you'll see here that the BOE 1150 is a monthly return. The 401A2 is a quarterly return, so we'll maintain all of that. And all of that information will come over here. Here's my consumer use tax. Here's my consumer use tax. And here's everything that goes across. So from an approval standpoint, you would come over to here to approve everything. If you need to make adjustments, you click on the link, and you can make those adjustments here if you need to. I've got something with a 0, so you can't really adjust anything. But this is where you would make those adjustments. Once you're good with the numbers, select the drop-down, select Approved. Everything down below gets totaled. This is the amount of money that gets pulled from your ACH sales tax payable account, and we then file the return. When the returns are filed, we save them in the archive for a total of 7 years, unless it's designated longer by a state. If you ever need to see those returns, they're all here in PDF format. I know that was a long way to answer the question, but it helped me show returns as well.
Yep, that's good.
So, I mean, it's that easy. Filing returns is the biggest outsource that we've got. A lot of the stuff that you guys are doing from an Avatax and from a calculation standpoint and an exemption certificate standpoint, a lot of the work is done on the front end to get it set up. But once it's set up, it's kind of set it and forget it. The returns piece is an absolute money saver for you guys. You don't have to spend time doing it. You click a button and we handle it. So that's it, guys. I mean, that's end to end. That's calculation. That's exemption certificate management. That's filing and remittance of the return. It's a complete outsource for you guys. So what didn't you see?
Any things you don't think we can do or we'd have problems with from what really you know, or things we should be working for in case we haven't told you about?
I don't see anything, Bob.
Okay.
If that was Bob talking. I feel confident. I mean, we can handle, we'll be able to, I mean, we have to work through a couple things, right? I mean, one thing we've got to work towards is getting the address in there correctly. And then the other thing, I know it's a rarity and I've brought it up a couple times, but the other piece is making sure, or how we handle it going through different jurisdictions. Those are things that we can overcome, but I don't see any reason why Avalara would not be able to really, I mean, you guys have a struggle. You guys do have an issue with sales and use tax, and you're probably spending a lot of time and money on it internally. I'm totally biased. It makes sense for you to outsource to Avalara.
How about Canada?
Same functionality that you see in the U.S.
Okay.
No change. Exactly the same functionality.
Good.
So Chris, one thing on those multiple jurisdictions, we would probably have like a separate load going, you know. You'd have so if you have a 3-year DOT project going across multiple jurisdictions, you know, it might, you know, go across multiple jurisdictions, but probably not in the same load or same delivery ticket or same invoice.
Sure. Well, again, I'll make this point. If that's our biggest hiccup and if that's our biggest roadblock, we're in excellent shape.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, just
We
like
still
you're
got
doing now with
people to pin the pin on the map, right?
right. And we'll do all of that. I mean, and we'll talk through implementation. Implementation is going to be a hand-holding process with us, just like you're getting with NetSuite. We can work with the pro services team within NetSuite hand in hand to make sure that everything's loaded correctly. You'll get the same type of hand-holding here at Avalara that you're getting with NetSuite. We'll walk you through the mapping process. We'll walk you through setup and implementation process. I mean, we'll go through everything. I would say if you're looking to go live end of April, I mean, we would love to be part of that go live. It makes it a lot easier and simpler for us. If we're part of go live, it makes it a lot easier and simpler for NetSuite if we're part of that go live. That way, everything can go live at one time. So, you know, we're willing to give as many free months as we can, and willing to give sandbox environments as long as we need to make sure that we map up with the go live. But just like any project, we'd like to have as much time as we can to make sure that we get it implemented correctly.
Well, yeah, I mean, my goal is to get it done right the first time and not have to do it twice. I mean, we don't have time to do everything twice, so once is enough. And if we don't have to do extra work, do the work. Just sort of eliminate stuff. It's just that it'll be just those kind of things that you're talking about, individual quirky items. Well, we have them now. If we missed it, it wouldn't be fatal, nor is it a problem. You'd just be overtaxing in most cases. You're conservatively going the wrong way, but it's okay in that sense. So it's not worst case scenario you're going to get screwed. I think the other comfort level, and hopefully the improvement of all this stuff, is my suspicion is, and you can confirm this from your experience, is once you use your tool, do you get your clients get fewer sales tax auditors? I mean, they don't like to spend money if they aren't going to make money, so they tend not to want to go around looking for things that aren't going to get found, and wasting time doesn't make money.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. Avalara obviously does not make you audit proof. It will never do that. But what it will do is it will allow the auditor to see that you've got your information organized and you're spending good money to keep it, to stay as compliant as you possibly can. So it won't prevent you from being audited, but what it will do is make that audit process a lot easier for both parties. And once you go through a few audits and you pass them with flying colors, the auditor may simply say, hey, send me your Avalara reports for the last quarter so I can look at them. It's not going to make it to where you don't get audited, but it is going to make it to where the audit process is very easy for both of you.
Well, that'll be moving in the right direction if nothing else.
No doubt. Again, I'm biased, Bob. You guys could get a huge benefit from using Avalara on board of your NetSuite ERP. The way you guys are doing it now is costing a lot of money and a lot of internal resources, and you're doing it incorrectly. And I mean that as professionally, as politely as I can make it, because you can't do it correctly. The laws are too goofy. It's crazy. And it doesn't make you any money. Calculating your sales tax does not generate any money for you. It's a tax.
Nope.
So whatever we need to do, I mean, I'll make sure that I fit within a budget or whatever the case may be, but this would be a slam dunk for Avalara. Be a great logo, offer you guys a big help, and we'll make it work. If you guys see functionality on your end, I'll do whatever I can to make sure that we line up correctly.
All right. Any other questions, Jeff or Alex?
No, not on our side.
No,
All right, cool.
nothing here.
All right. Thank you, Chris, very
Great.
much. I appreciate the demo.
Yeah, guys. Sure. So next steps for me, I'll follow up and give you the recording. If you guys are interested in seeing the quote, just let me know. I'll let you know what metrics I need for that, and then we'll kind of proceed from there.
All right, sounds good. I'll get back to you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks,
All right.
Alex.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right, bye.
All right.